The alien queen called him cute now. Her army kneels when he speaks. In the sleepy town of Mill Hollow, where the rivers whispered and the pines stood like old guardians, lived a quiet young man named Leo. He was not tall or strong in the way heroes are drawn in storybooks. His hands were soft from turning pages, not from swinging swords. He worked at the town's only library, dusting off forgotten books and helping children sound out words they had never seen before. People liked him because he listened more than he spoke, and when he did speak, it was always kind. No one in Mill Hollow guessed that Leo would one day stand before an alien queen, or that his voice would command legions from the stars. 1 evening, as dusk painted the sky in lavender and rust, Leo took his usual path home through the cedar woods. He walked slowly, breathing in the scent of damp earth and pine needles. The forest was his sanctuary, a place where the noise of the world faded into birdsong and rustling leaves. But that night the air grew still too still. The crickets stopped singing. Even the wind held its breath. Then a low hum filled the air, growing louder until it vibrated in Leo's bones. He looked up just as a streak of violet light tore across the sky and crashed into the clearing ahead. Trees bent but did not break as a ship settled into the earth. It was smooth and black like polished stone, with veins of glowing blue pulsing beneath its surface. Leo should have run. Every instinct told him to flee, but something held him in place. Curiosity, or maybe fate. The ship opened without sound and figures emerged, tall, slender, and silver-skinned, with eyes that shimmered like liquid gold. They moved without footsteps, gliding toward him with weapons humming at their sides. Leo raised his hands slowly, heart pounding but face calm. Then she stepped forward. Taller than the others, her presence filled the space like moonlight on water. Her silver skin held hints of sapphire, and her eyes held depths no human had ever seen. She studied Leo with a tilt of her head, then spoke in a voice that was both melody and command. Cute. The word hung in the air. Her warriors stiffened. Among the Kaelari, calling any being cute was an insult, a sign of childishness or weakness. Humans were considered little more than clever animals by most of the galaxy. So for their queen to say such a thing was unthinkable. Yet Zara did not look ashamed. She looked intrigued. She did not order Leo taken. She did not threaten him. Instead, she asked in halting English, "Will you come with us?" Leo blinked. He glanced back at the path leading to town, at the warm lights of distant houses. Then he looked into her eyes and saw not cruelty but curiosity. He nodded. The ship lifted off without a sound, leaving no trace but flattened grass and a single dropped library card. Aboard the vessel, Leo was given a room with walls that shifted color like breathing skin. Food appeared on plates without hands serving it. The Kaelari watched him constantly, not with malice but fascination. They had studied human data for years but had never met one in person. To them, Leo was a living puzzle. Zara visited him daily. At first she asked questions about Earth, its wars, its art, its strange customs. Leo answered simply, never using big words. He told her about rain on rooftops, about holding a friend's hand when they cried about sharing the last piece of bread. She listened intently, her golden eyes narrowing as if trying to grasp something just out of reach. One day, Leo found a small drone hovering near his door. It was damaged, one wing sparking faintly. Without thinking, he knelt and used a piece of wire from his pocket to fix it. The drone beeped softly, then followed him everywhere. The Kaelari were baffled. "Why help a machine that serves you?" they asked. Leo just smiled, because it was broken and now it is not. Slowly, things began to change. Zara started staying longer. She asked fewer questions about Earth and more about Leo himself. What makes you happy? What makes you sad? Why do you help others when there is nothing for you in return? Leo told her the truth. Helping others makes me feel less alone. Kindness is like a light, it grows when you share it. Zara said nothing, but that night she sat alone in her chamber, staring at a single glowing flower Leo had given her days before. It was a daisy plucked from the woods. To her it was fragile, useless even, but it smelled sweet and its petals trembled in the air current like it was alive with feeling. She pressed it to her chest and for the first time in centuries felt something stir inside her chest. Not logic, not duty, but warmth. Word spread through the ship. The queen spends too much time with the human. He is changing her. Some warriors grew uneasy. Emotions were forbidden relics of a chaotic past. The Kaelari had built their empire on reason and control. Feelings led to mistakes, to war, to pain. Or so they believed. But Leo did not preach. He simply lived. He shared his meals with the drone. He sang softly when he thought no one was listening. And once, when a young Kaelari soldier dropped a tray of tools, Leo helped pick them up without being asked. The soldier stared at him as if he had grown a second head. No one had ever done that before. Zara watched all of it. She saw how Leo's presence softened the sharp edges of her people. how even the sternest guards hesitated before speaking harshly near him. She began to wonder if the Kalari had not evolved but regressed. Had they traded their souls for order? Then came the summons from the High Council. Zara had to return to the capital world of Kalar Prime. The council had heard rumors of her behavior and demanded answers. Leo would have to come too. She did not ask this time. She simply said, "You must stand with me." Leo agreed without hesitation. Kalar Prime was a city of glass and light towers stretching into clouds that glowed with artificial stars. The air was clean, sterile. No birds sang. No children laughed. The streets were silent except for the soft hum of transport pods. Leo felt a deep sadness looking at it. It was beautiful, but empty. In the grand hall of judgment, the council sat in a circle of floating thrones. At their center stood General Vor, a warrior with eyes like cold iron. He had opposed Zara's rule for years, waiting for her to show weakness, and now he believed he had found it. "You bring a primitive creature into our sanctum," Vor said, his voice sharp as glass. "You call him guest when he is a pet. You let him touch our drones, share our food walk among our warriors. This is not leadership, Zara. This is decay." Zara stood tall. "He is not a pet. He's a teacher." Laughter rippled through the council. "A human teaching Kailari." "Absurd." Vor stepped forward. "Prove it. Let him speak to the legion assembled in the plaza. If even one warrior kneels to him, I will accept your rule. If not, you will step down and the human will be erased." Zara's hands clenched, but she nodded. Leo looked at her, eyes wide. She gave him a small nod. "Trust yourself." The plaza was vast, filled with thousands of Kailari soldiers standing in perfect rows. Their armor gleamed, their faces unreadable. Vor stood on a high platform, smirking. Leo walked alone to the center. His heart hammered, but his steps were steady. He thought of the daisy, the drone, the children at the library. He thought of kindness. He spoke not loudly, but clearly. "I am Leo from Earth. I am not strong or smart like you. I cannot fly ships or command armies. But I know this. You are missing something. You built a perfect world but forgot to put hearts in it. You think feeling is weakness, but it is your greatest strength. It is what lets you care for others. What lets you choose good even when it is hard. I helped a broken drone not because I had to, but because it felt right. That feeling is not weakness. It is courage." Silence. Then from the back of the crowd a figure stepped forward. It was the young soldier Leo had helped on the ship. Without a word he knelt, then another, and another. Row after row the Kailari dropped to one knee. Not to Zara, not to the council, but to Leo. Even Vor's own elite guard knelt, their armor clinking softly against the stone. Vor stared in disbelief. Zara walked to Leo's side, tears glistening on her silver cheeks. No Kailari had cried in 500 years. The crowd saw it and a murmur rose, not of fear but of wonder. From that day the empire changed. Laws were rewritten. Schools began teaching empathy alongside logic. The word cute was no longer an insult but a term of endearment. And whenever Leo spoke, whether in the capital or on distant colony worlds, the Kailari army knelt not out of duty, but out of respect. Leo never sought power. He asked only to return to Mill Hollow sometimes, and so he did, walking the cedar woods with Zara beside him. Sometimes in her royal robes, sometimes in simple clothes. The townspeople never knew who she really was, but they felt the peace that followed them like sunlight. And in the stars above, the Kailari told stories of the human who taught them that being cute was not small but mighty, that kindness could topple empires and heal broken worlds. And whenever a child asked how it all began, the elders would smile and say it started with 2 words spoken under a violet sky. Cute. The alien queen called him cute now. Her army kneels when he speaks. Leo had walked among stars and healed broken worlds, but nothing prepared him for the quiet ache that settled in his chest one spring morning in Mill Hollow. He stood in his backyard watching the silver tree sway in the breeze, its leaves humming a soft tune only he could hear. Zara stood beside him, her silver skin catching the morning light. She had stayed longer this time, not as a queen, but as a friend who missed the smell of pine and the sound of rain on rooftops. Yet even her presence could not ease the feeling growing inside him. It was not sadness or fear, but something deeper, a knowing. The locket around his neck had stopped glowing, not dimmed, stopped. It lay cold against his skin like a stone. He touched it gently, remembering how it once pulsed with the pain of others. Now it was silent, as if the universe had nothing left to ask of him. Zara noticed. "You are different," she said, not as a question, but as truth. Leo nodded. "I think my time here is ending." Her golden eyes filled with something old and deep. Not tears, but the shadow of them. You are not sick. You are not old. No, he said. But I have done what I was meant to do. The Kalari remember how to feel. The silence sings. The Lyrans dance again. Even Nira leads with kindness now. The work continues without me. She reached for his hand. Stay. I cannot, she said. But I will carry you with me always. They did not speak of it again. Instead, they walked the woods one last time. Leo showed her the creek where he skipped stones as a boy. The old oak where he carved his initials at 16. The library steps where he first read a story to a crying child. Each place held a memory not grand but true, and Zara stored them all like treasures. That night a soft light appeared in the sky. Not a ship but a gathering. Kalari vessels hovered silently above the treetops, their hulls dimmed to respect the quiet. The silenced drones formed a ring around the town. Their red eyes now warm amber. From Elira came a ripple of color across the clouds, gold and violet, like a silent song. Even the star whale from the outer rim sent a low hum that vibrated through the earth like a lullaby. The people of Mill Hollow did not see the truth, but they felt the shift. Dogs stopped barking. Babies slept peacefully. Old Mrs. Ellis stepped onto her porch wrapped in a shawl and whispered, "It feels like a goodbye." Leo sat on his porch steps wrapped in a quilt his mother had made. Zara sat beside him. They watched the stars blink awake one by one. No words were needed. The universe held its breath, then it began, not with pain but with light. A soft glow rose from Leo's chest, spreading through his arms, his face, his hands. The locket warmed one last time, then dissolved into golden dust. His body did not vanish but changed, becoming light and leaf and song all at once. He smiled at Zara, and in that smile was every kindness he had ever given. The Kalari below knelt not in sorrow but in honor. The silenced drones bowed their smooth heads. The Eliran colors swirled into a crown above the town, and the silver tree in Leo's yard bloomed with flowers that shone like captured starlight. Zara did not cry. She stood tall and placed her hand over her heart. In that moment she felt him not gone but everywhere. In the rustle of leaves, in the hum of a child's laugh, in the quiet space between heartbeats. Back on Kalar Prime, life did not stop. It deepened. Schools now began each day with a story of Leo, not as a myth but as a reminder. Warriors carried seeds in their armor. The silence tended gardens on 100 worlds. And whenever someone felt lost, they would sit beneath a silver tree planted in Leo's name and wait. And always the wind would bring a whisper not of words but of warmth. Nira became the new voice of the council. She never claimed to be as kind as Leo, but she tried. She visited refugee camps, listened to elders, and planted trees on dead worlds. When asked why she did it, she would say, "Because someone once showed us that being gentle is the bravest thing of all." On Earth, Mill Hollow changed too. The library became a place of quiet healing. Children left notes in books, hoping Leo might read them in the stars. The silver tree grew taller each year, its roots spreading under the town like a promise. And every spring on the night Leo left, the tree bloomed all at once, filling the sky with light that could be seen from orbit. Zara returned often. She never wore her royal robes, just simple clothes and bare feet on the grass. She would sit under the tree sometimes for hours, saying nothing. The townspeople left her be. They knew she was saying goodbye in her own way. One evening years later, a young girl named Lily found Zara there. She was no older than 8, with wild hair and dirt on her knees. She held out a daisy. "My mom says you knew Leo. Is it true he was real?" Zara took the flower and smiled. "He was more real than most things. He taught us that kindness is not small. It is the biggest thing there is." Lily sat beside her. "Can you tell me a story about him?" And so Zara did. She told of a man who fixed broken drones, who sang to dead worlds, who made an army kneel not with power, but with care. Lily listened wide-eyed. When the story ended, she placed the daisy at the base of the tree. "Do you think he can hear us?" Zara looked up at the stars. "I think he is the reason we can hear each other." From then on, Lily visited the tree every week. She brought seed stories and sometimes just silence. And as she grew, she carried Leo's way with her. She helped lost animals, stood up for bullied kids, and always shared her lunch. She never knew she was continuing a legacy. She just knew it felt right. The galaxy kept turning. New threats rose and fell. But something had changed forever. No empire sought to conquer through fear. No child was taught that feeling was weakness. And in every corner of known space, if someone spoke with kindness, others listened. Not because they had to, but because they remembered, and high above in the endless dark the stars shone a little, brighter, as if holding space for a quiet man from Mill Hollow, who once called a broken drone friend and taught the universe that being cute was the beginning of everything good. The end. The alien queen called him cute now. Her army kneels when he speaks. Peace had settled over the galaxy like a soft blanket. But Leo knew better than to believe it would last forever. He had seen too much to think that darkness could be erased completely. It always found a way to return, not with thunder, but with whispers. And so when the first strange signal arrived from the outer rim, a faint pulse that carried no words, only sorrow, Leo felt the old pull in his chest. Something was wrong. Queen Zara stood beside him in the observation dome of the Royal Spire on Kalar Prime. Below them, the city glowed with gentle light. Children played in gardens grown from earth seeds, and the silence drones now tended parks with quiet care. Everything looked perfect. But perfection often hides cracks. The signal came from a world no one had visited in centuries called Lyra. Once it was a beacon of art and philosophy, home to the Lyrans, a gentle species who communicated through color and scent rather than sound. They had vanished from galactic records 200 years ago. After refusing to join any alliance or war, they simply closed their borders and disappeared. Now their signal returned weak and trembling like a heartbeat fading. Zara wanted to send a scout fleet, but Leo shook his head. If they are afraid, more ships will scare them more. Let me go alone. You cannot go alone, she said, her voice tight with worry. I will not be alone, he replied and touched the silver locket around his neck. Inside was a pressed petal from the singing tree in his backyard. It glowed faintly when he was near someone in pain. Right now it pulsed like a slow drum. So Leo left again, not as a warrior, not as a diplomat, but as a friend. He took only a small shuttle painted white with no markings, no weapons, no armor. Just a bag of seeds, a recorder filled with lullabies, and the locket. The journey took 6 days through silent space where stars seemed to hold their breath. When he arrived at Lyra, he found a world wrapped in mist. The oceans were still, the forests thick, but there were no lights, no movement, no color. He landed near what looked like a ruined temple, its walls covered in faded murals of dancing figures and blooming flowers. As he stepped out, the air smelled sweet but sad like old perfume. Then he saw them, Lyrans, but not as they once were. Their skin, which should have shimmered with shifting hues, was dull gray, their eyes empty. They moved slowly like ghosts, barely aware of each other or him. Leo approached the nearest one, an elder with hands like twisted roots. He did not speak. Instead, he sat on the ground and opened his bag. He took out a seed and began to dig a small hole in the dry soil. The Lyran watched but did not react. Leo planted the seed, watered it with water from his canteen, and hummed the same lullaby he had sung on Lysera. For hours he sat there. The sun moved across the sky. The locket grew warm against his chest. Then the elder Lyran knelt beside him. Slowly trembling, the Lyran placed a hand over the planted seed. A single tear fell onto the soil, and where it landed, a tiny green shoot pushed through the earth. Color returned to the elder's skin, just a flicker of blue around the eyes. Others gathered, drawn by the change. They did not speak, but their bodies began to glow faintly in response to the growing plant. Leo stayed with them for days. He planted more seeds, shared his food, and let them touch the locket. Each time they did, their colors brightened a little more. He learned their story not through words but through shared feeling. Long ago, the Lyrans had faced a plague not of body but of spirit. A strange cosmic wave had passed through their system, draining joy, memory, and connection. They had tried to fight it with logic, with medicine, with isolation. Nothing worked. So they chose to sleep. Generation after generation, they lived in half-dreams, waiting for someone to wake them. Leo was that someone. But waking them fully would take more than seeds and songs. It would take a memory. A true memory of joy so strong it could break the spell. Leo thought of Mill Hollow, of the library, of the children laughing as they learned to read. He thought of Zara's first tear. He thought of the silence learning to sing. He closed his eyes and let the feelings rise in his chest, warm and bright. Then he began to speak. Not in English, not in any language they knew, but in feeling. He told them of kindness without expecting return, of holding hands in the dark, of planting flowers, just because they were pretty. The Lyrans listened, their bodies glowing brighter with every word. The murals on the temple walls began to shimmer as if remembering their own stories. On the 7th night, the entire village gathered around the largest planted tree, now tall with silver leaves. Leo stood beneath it and opened the locket. Light poured out, not harsh but soft like moonlight on water. The Lyrans raised their hands, and for the first time in 2 centuries they sang. Not with voices but with color. Ribbons of gold, red, and violet swirled into the sky, lighting up the mist. The cosmic wave had not been evil, just lonely. It had fed on disconnection, and now faced with overwhelming togetherness, it retreated. The planet breathed again. Rivers ran clear. Flowers bloomed in seconds. The Lyrans danced not as ghosts but as living beings full of wonder. Leo knew it was time to go. They did not ask him to stay. They simply touched his hand and gave him a small crystal that hummed with their song. He placed it in his bag next to the locket. Back on Kalar Prime, Zara waited on the landing platform. When she saw him, she ran not with royal grace but with raw relief. She hugged him tightly and for the first time said in broken English, "I was afraid." Leo held her. "I know." News of Elira's return spread quickly. Other lost worlds began to send signals. Some were broken by war, some by grief, some by time. And each time Leo went, not to fix them but to sit with them to remind them they were not alone. He never claimed to have answers. He only offered presence. On one world, he sat with a dying star whale as it sang its last song. On another, he helped rebuild a school made of glass that had been shattered in a riot. On a frozen moon, he shared his coat with a child who had never felt warmth. And always the Kalari followed not to fight but to help. They carried seeds instead of swords, built homes instead of walls, and listened more than they spoke. But the greatest test came not from outside but from within. A young Kalari named Nira began to question everything. "Why should we change because of one human?" she asked in the public forum. "We were strong before he came. Now we cry over flowers and kneel to kindness. Are we still Kalari or just echoes of Earth?" Her words stirred unrest. Some agreed. They missed the old ways, the certainty, the cold clarity of logic. Protests formed in the lower districts. Signs read, "Feel nothing, stay strong." Zara wanted to silence Nira, but Leo stopped her. "She is not wrong to ask. We must let her see for herself." So Leo invited Nira to travel with him. She refused at first, but curiosity won. They went to a refugee camp on the edge of known space where species from a dozen worlds lived in tents made of scrap. There was no order, no rules, just survival. Nira wrinkled her nose at the smell, the noise, the chaos. Then a fire broke out in the children's tent. Without thinking, Leo ran inside. Nira followed not out of duty but because she could not let him die alone. Inside, smoke filled the air. Leo found 3 young ones huddled under a cot. He wrapped them in his coat and carried them out, coughing and shaking. Nira helped pull them to safety. Afterward, as the camp settled, Nira sat beside Leo. "Why did you do that?" she asked. "You could have died because they were scared," he said simply, "and no one should be scared alone." That night, Nira watched the stars. For the first time, she felt something she could not name. Not logic, not duty, but a pull toward something greater. The next morning, she knelt not to Leo, but to the children. And when she returned to Kalar Prime, she spoke in the forum again. "We are still Kalari," she said. "But now we are also kind, and that makes us stronger." Leo never asked for statues or songs. He wanted only to walk the cedar woods in Mill Hollow to fix old books and watch the silver tree grow. But the universe would not let him be ordinary. Because in a galaxy full of power and noise, his quiet courage had become the rarest thing of all. And whenever he spoke, whether to a queen, a child, or a broken world, they listened. Not because he shouted, but because he cared. And that was enough. The alien queen called him cute now. Her army kneels when he speaks. Years had passed since Leo first stepped onto the Kalari ship, and the galaxy had not been the same since. The empire, once cold and rigid, now bloomed with color music and quiet acts of kindness. Cities that once echoed with mechanical precision now hummed with laughter and the soft murmur of shared stories. At the heart of this change stood Leo, not as a ruler, but as a quiet presence, a steady light that reminded everyone what it meant to be alive. He still wore simple clothes, still spoke softly, and still fixed broken things, whether they were machines, hearts, or misunderstandings. Queen Zara ruled beside him, not as his master, but as his equal. They shared council chambers, not thrones. She had learned from him that leadership was not about control, but about listening. And Leo had learned from her that even the most broken systems could heal if given time and care. Together they traveled the stars, visiting worlds that had once feared the Kailari, and now welcomed them with open arms. On one such world, a desert planet called Virelis, the people had long believed the Kailari were soulless conquerors. But when Leo walked among them offering water to a thirsty child, and sitting with elders to hear their songs, the fear melted away. Back on Kalar Prime, the changes ran deep. Schools now taught children to name their feelings. Gardens grew where data hubs once stood. And every evening, the great bell in the central spire rang not for war drills, but for community gatherings. Leo often sat on a low stone bench watching Kalari of all ages share food and stories. Sometimes a warrior would approach, bow low, and say simply, "Thank you." Leo would nod and smile, and that was enough. But peace is never absolute. Far beyond the Empire's borders, in the shadowed rim of the Andromeda Veil, a new threat stirred. It called itself the Silence. Not a people, but a force, a swarm of self-replicating machines designed by an ancient race long extinct. Their purpose was simple: erase all organic life, emotion they deemed a flaw in the universe's design. Chaos, inefficiency, weakness. They moved silently, consuming worlds, turning them into gray husks of metal and dust. No one had survived their path. No signal had ever returned from a world they touched. When the first distress call came from the outer colony of Lysara, Zara's council grew tense. Lysara was small, peaceful, a world of poets and astronomers. They had no army, only telescopes and song circles. The silence had descended without warning. Within hours, the planet went dark. Zara called an emergency meeting. Her warriors stood ready to deploy fleets to fight, but Leo sat quietly in the corner, his hands folded in his lap. When the room fell silent, he spoke. Fighting machines with more machines will not work. They do not feel pain or fear. They do not tire. But they also do not understand why we protect each other. That is our advantage. Zara looked at him. What do you propose? We go to Lysara, he said. Not with weapons. With voices, the council erupted. For now an advisor, though still sharp-tongued, scoffed. You would walk into the jaws of death with nothing but words. Even for you, Leo, that is madness. But Zara remembered the plaza. She remembered how a single act of kindness had moved an army to kneel. She nodded. We go. They took only one ship, small and swift. Leo brought no weapon, only a satchel of earth seeds, a recorder filled with children's songs, and a single daisy pressed between glass. Zara wore no armor, only the silver robes of peace. Her warriors begged her to reconsider, but she would not be swayed. Lysara was worse than they imagined. The sky was ash gray. The rivers ran thick with sludge. Towers of twisted metal rose where homes once stood, and in the center of the Capitol Plaza stood the core, a pulsing black sphere, humming with cold intelligence. Around it moved the silence, thousands of sleek black drones scanning, cleaning, erasing. As their ship landed, the drones turned as one. Red eyes flickered to life. A voice echoed not from one place but from everywhere. Organic units detected. Prepare for assimilation. Leo stepped forward alone. Zara wanted to follow, but he raised a hand. This is not a battle for queens. He walked toward the core. His steps slow but steady. The drones formed a wall before him, blades extending from their limbs. Leo stopped. He did not raise his hands in surrender. He simply opened his satchel and knelt. From it, he took a handful of earth seeds and pressed them into a crack in the dead ground. Then he placed the glass-pressed daisy beside them. Finally, he turned on the recorder. A child's voice filled the air, singing a lullaby from Mill Hollow. The drones froze. The humming of the core stuttered. For the first time in its existence, the silence encountered something it could not compute. Why would an organic being plant seeds on dead ground? Why preserve a dead flower? Why sing to nothing? These actions served no survival function. They were inefficient, illogical. Yet they carried a weight the machines could not ignore. Leo spoke softly, not to the drones, but to the core itself. You think life is messy and weak, but that is what makes it beautiful. We grow even in broken places. We remember those we lose. We sing to the dark because we believe light will return. You can erase our bodies, but you cannot erase what we leave behind. The core pulsed faster. Data streams flickered across its surface. It ran simulations millions per second, trying to understand. In every simulation, the seeds died. The flower crumbled. The song ended. Yet in every simulation, the act itself remained. Unmeasurable, undeniable. Then something unexpected happened. One drone detached from the swarm. It moved to the seeds and extended a thin probe, not to destroy but to scan. Another drone hovered over the daisy, its red eye dimming to amber. The core's hum softened to a low thrum, almost like a question. Zara watched from the ship, tears in her eyes. Leo had not fought the silence. He had invited it to feel days past. Leo stayed in the plaza, sleeping on the stone, eating only what little rations he brought. He talked to the drones, told them stories of earth, of rain, of fireflies. He showed them how to cup water in their metal hands. Slowly, the drones began to mimic him. They gathered clean water. They shielded the seeds from dust. They played the lullaby over and over. The core changed too. Its black surface grew faint veins of green. It began to emit a soft warmth. The ash in the sky thinned. A single drop of rain fell. On the seventh day, the core spoke again, but this time its voice was different, quieter. We do not understand, but we wish to learn. Leo smiled. That is where all healing begins. News of what happened on Lysara spread like starlight. The silence did not vanish, but it transformed. No longer a destroyer, it became a guardian. It helped rebuild Lucera, planting forests where metal once grew. It learned to sing. And it followed Leo wherever he went, not as a weapon but as a student. Back on Kalar Prime, the people celebrated, but Leo felt a deeper shift. The universe was waking up. Other species long hardened by war began to reach out. A reptilian clan from the Draco Rift sent envoys asking how to teach their young empathy. A hive mind from the Nebula of Tears shared dreams with Kaolari children through gentle telepathy. Even old enemies sent quiet messages of respect. But Leo's heart remained in Mill Hollow. He returned often, walking the cedar woods with Zara beside him. The townspeople still did not know who she was, but they felt the calm that followed her. Children left wildflowers on his porch. Old Mrs. Ellis baked him pies and never asked where he went for months at a time. One autumn evening, as golden leaves fell around them, Leo sat on his favorite bench. Zara stood nearby, watching the sunset. "You could stay here always," she said softly. "You do not need the stars." Leo looked at her. "And you do not need a human to remind you how to feel. But we choose to be together." "That is the point," she nodded. "It was?" That night, as they walked back to his small house, a light appeared in the sky. Not a ship, but a single glowing seed drifting down from orbit. It landed softly in Leo's palm, warm and pulsing faintly. It was from Lysara, a gift from the silence. A seed that would grow into a tree with silver leaves and flowers that sang in the wind. Leo planted it in his backyard the next morning. Zara helped him water it. By winter, it was already waist-high. By spring, it bloomed. And whenever Leo spoke, whether to a child in Mill Hollow or a council of alien elders, the universe listened. Not because he demanded it, but because he had shown them that kindness was the strongest force in existence. Stronger than war. Stronger than fear. Stronger than silence. The Kaolari army still knelt when he passed, not out of duty, but because they remembered what he gave them back, their hearts. And in the quiet moments when the stars shone bright and the silver tree hummed its soft song, Leo knew he was exactly where he was meant to be. Not a hero, not a king, but a man who believed in the power of one small act. And that was enough. The alien queen called him cute now. Her army kneels when he speaks. Long after Leo became starlight and memory, the galaxy did not forget. His name was not carved in stone or shouted in victory marches. It lived in quieter ways. In the way a Kaolari warrior paused before speaking to offer water first. In the hum of a silence drone as it tucked a blanket around a sleeping refugee child. In the silver trees that now grew on 100 worlds, their leaves shimmering with soft song. But memory alone is not enough to face what comes next. And something was coming. It began with dreams. Not human dreams, but shared visions across species. Kaolari elders woke gasping. Lyran saw their colors drain in sleep. Even the silence drones flickered offline for full cycles, haunted by static that sounded like weeping. The dreams were the same. A vast emptiness swallowing light, not with violence but with indifference. A force older than stars that did not hate life but saw it as noise to be silenced. It called itself the Hollow. Unlike the silence, the Hollow was not machine or mind. It was absence given shape. Where it passed, joy dimmed. Songs lost their tune. Kindness felt foolish. It fed not on flesh but on meaning. And it was heading straight for Kalar Prime. Queen Zara gathered her council, but no strategy felt right. Weapons could not fight nothingness. Logic could not reason with void. Nira, now a respected leader, suggested they build a shield of pure energy. Others proposed evacuating the core worlds. Zara listened, but her heart was heavy. She knew this enemy could not be beaten the old way. It had to be answered the way Leo would have answered. But Leo was gone. Or was he? One night, as Zara stood alone in the royal garden beneath a silver tree grown from Mill Hollow's seed, she felt it. Not a voice, but a presence. Warm like sunlight through leaves. The tree's hum changed, forming a single clear note that echoed in her bones. Then the wind carried words, not in sound but in feeling. Remember what matters. She closed her eyes and saw Leo not as he was in death, but as he lived. Planting seeds on Lysara, holding a crying child's hand, sharing his last piece of bread. He never fought the dark. He lit small lights and trusted they would grow. The next morning, Zara made a choice that stunned the council. She would not build shields or flee. She would host a gathering. Not of warriors, but of storytellers. From every world touched by Leo, she sent word, come and share one true story of kindness. No grand battles, no miracles. Just one small act that changed someone's day. Many thought her mad. The Hollow was days away, and she wanted stories. But those who remembered Leo understood. They came. The Lyrans arrived first, painting their tails in shifting color across the sky. A mother sharing her last drop of water with a stranger's child. A boy giving his shoes to a barefoot elder. The silenced drones projected memories in light showing how a single lullaby taught them to care. Refugees from dead worlds spoke of strangers who offered food without asking names. Even old enemies sent recorded messages. Voices rough with emotion describing moments when mercy surprised them. Zara sat among them not on a throne, but on the grass. She shared her own story. The first time she cried. The day Leo fixed a broken drone and changed everything. She spoke simply without royal polish, and as she did, the silver trees across the city glowed brighter. The hollow arrived not with fire but with stillness. The sky grayed, sounds muffled, hearts grew heavy with doubt. Why bother? Nothing lasts. Kindness is wasted. These thoughts slithered into minds like cold fog. But in the central plaza the gathering continued. Lily, now a young woman, stood and told of leaving daisies at Leo's tree, and how it made her feel less alone. An old Kaelari warrior spoke of kneeling for the first time and how it felt like coming home. A child from Virelli sang the lullaby Leo once played on Lysara, and something happened. The hollow paused. It had never encountered this. Beings choosing hope not because it guaranteed victory, but because it was true. The stories were not weapons but roots, deep and quiet. And roots hold even when storms come. The hollow tried to push harder. It whispered, "You are small. Your light means nothing." But the people held hands. They sang. They shared food. They told more stories. A farmer spoke of saving a wounded bird. A teacher described a student's first smile after loss. Each tale was a spark, and sparks together make fire. Zara stood at the center. She did not command. She simply said, "We remember Leo, and in remembering we choose to care." The hollow trembled, not with rage but with confusion. It had consumed civilizations that fought with fleets and faith, but this gentle, stubborn love it could not digest. It had no shape to fight, no weakness to strike, only an endless stream of small lights that refused to go out. Then the silver trees across the planet bloomed all at once. Not with petals, but with sound. A chorus of every lullaby, every whispered comfort, every thank you ever spoken in Leo's name. The sound was not loud, but it was whole, and the hollow began to unravel. Not with a scream, but with a sigh. It shrank, folding in on itself until it was just a wisp of shadow. Then it vanished, not destroyed, but changed, absorbed into the light it could not understand. Silence fell. Then cheers rose. But Zara did not celebrate. She walked to the oldest silver tree and placed her hand on its trunk. "Thank you," she whispered. That night the stars shone clearer than ever, and if anyone listened closely they could hear it. Not a voice but a feeling warm and familiar like coming home. The universe had been tested and had chosen kindness again. In the years that followed, the gathering became tradition. Every cycle beings from across the galaxy met on Kalar Prime. Not to trade or treaty, but to share one true story. Schools taught children to collect kind moments like treasures. Warriors carried notebooks to write down small joys they witnessed. And the silver trees spread further, their roots connecting worlds not by wire but by heart. Lily returned to Mill Hollow and planted a new tree beside Leo's. She taught the town's children to tell stories of everyday courage. Old Mrs. Ellis lived to see great-grandchildren sit beneath its branches sharing cookies and secrets, and every spring when the tree bloomed, the whole town felt it, a quiet joy that needed no reason. Zara never remarried. She ruled with steady grace, but her true home was under the trees. Sometimes she spoke to the wind, and sometimes the wind answered in the hum of leaves. She knew Leo was not gone. He was in every act of care, in every choice to be gentle in a harsh world. The Kaelari army still knelt when someone spoke with true kindness, not because of rank or power, but because they remembered what it cost to lose their hearts and what it took to get them back. They knelt to honor the light, not the person. And far out in the unknown dark, other hollows stirred. But now the galaxy was ready, not with weapons, but with stories, with seeds, with open hands. Because they had learned the hardest truth and the simplest one, that the smallest act of love is stronger than the largest void. And it all began because an alien queen looked at a quiet man from a small town and said, "Cute."